All right, welcome, folks. This is another episode of the Brad Michaels Show. I'm Brad Michaels here with you. I got Victor here in the studio, my producer and co-host right now for this show as well. And I'm telling you what, 2 weeks or a week since we've done a show. Kudos to the Ukrainians, man. They're really giving it to the Russians, aren't they?
Yeah, sure are. It's the will of people. It's hard, I think, as Americans for us to like really think about like what it's like for like somebody to come into our country and invade. And I don't know how many people would stay and fight, Americans, especially nowadays with all the division and, everybody, especially the media, trying to get as much division from people as possible. There's a lot of morale or a lack of morale for the United States. So I don't know how many people will stay and fight, but it's very, encouraging to see the Ukrainians put up such a fight.
Well, it was interesting to me that you mentioned, if we were to be invaded here in our homeland, and there was a poll where they polled Republicans and they polled Democrats, and the majority of the Republicans that were polled in this said that they would stay and fight. The majority of the Democrats, any idea how they voted?
Well, they're not the ones who have guns, so they can...
they can't defend themselves, therefore they would run for the hills.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. Your entire attitude changes when something like that actually happens. So if foreign boots were to hit the ground and we were being attacked, I don't know, maybe it would be... not necessarily human nature, but maybe just the human nature of your patriotism towards your homeland, towards your country. But then again, actually, most Democrats really don't care about the United States anyway. They do only for what the United States can do for them, but not what they can do for the country, which brings us back to something that one of their own, John F. Kennedy, said, it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. But actually, if you were to look at the type of politics that John F. Kennedy prescribed to, he would probably be a Republican today. But
you would think so.
We talked about, in the last time we were on here, we were talking about the investments, and we were talking about the fossil fuels and the fact that you can't get rid of the fossil fuels because the fossil fuels are required to manufacture and produce the machinery and the equipment that is needed to capture solar power, to capture wind power. So then we were talking about how that entire thing plays out with our politicians and the policies that we see them implement, or the things that they do or don't do. And you've always heard, I've always said it, and it's always been something that everybody else has always said, is you follow the money trail, right? So I thought it was interesting, and we left off at this, and I don't want to just skip over Ukraine. I think we'll come back to that. We can talk a little bit more about some of the things that are going on in Ukraine. But I wanted to pick up where we left off the last show. I had teased that I had information from Business Insider on 57 members of Congress that have violated a law that was designed to stop insider trading and prevent conflicts of interest. So I thought it was very interesting, and I wanted to cover that. Numerous U.S. lawmakers are not complying with the Federal Stock Act. Their excuses range from oversights to clerical errors to inattentive accountants. How convenient, right? They always got to, for the most part, any politician that gets caught with their hand in the cookie jar always points the blame to somebody else. Well, it wasn't me. It was my assistant. Well, it wasn't me. It was my accountant. Come on. So ethics watchdogs and even some in Congress are wanting to ban lawmakers, and I agree with this. As long as you are in office and you are a lawmaker dictating various policies, of which a lot of those are financial policies, you should not be allowed to trade individual stocks. Now, I don't have a problem if they invest their money in a mutual fund. How do you feel about that?
If I think it should go either one of two ways. I think it should either be that they can't do it at all, or they should be insanely public with what they do. So, like, if say Nancy Pelosi drops $50,000 on a certain stock, I feel like the whole world should know that she did this, because that probably means something else is coming.
The minute that she did.
Yeah, exactly.
So therefore, if she is privy to some sort of insider information, she's dropped $50,000 into a stock. That gives me the same opportunity to go ahead and dump $50,000 into that stock or whatever I want to put into it right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of this Twitter account. It was I think it was like Pelosi Stock Watch or something like that. And it literally went through all of these stocks that Nancy Pelosi gambled on, or, like, you know, invested in. And she had like a crazy, like, I'm exaggerating, but like a 40% return rate or something, ridiculous like that.
And it's incredible the return rates these people in Congress
Twitter
get.
took the account down.
Of course.
Yeah. So they literally, all they were putting up is like, Nancy Pelosi invested in these stocks today. And they shut it down.
Of course they're going to shut it down, because Twitter doesn't want to report the truth. Anything that's out there that's usually something that has truth behind it, Twitter will shut it down. Same as Facebook was doing for a long time. Facebook's actually gotten better, allowing certain things to be posted now. But, you know, I mean, this was a law. Congress passed this law a decade ago to combat the insider trading and conflicts of interest. And it was it was stuff that was happening among their own members. It was going to force the lawmakers supposedly to be more transparent about their personal financial dealings, and it's not working. The thing is, so what it is basically the members of Congress, a lot of them have not fully complied with the law. They offer, like I said, all those excuses. It was a clerical error. It was ignorance of the law. How can you claim ignorance of the law when you probably helped write it? That's beyond me. All right. So lawmakers that violate the Stock Act do face a fine, although it's pretty small. It's $200 is the standard amount, because, you know, they're never going to hit themselves real hard.
They probably look at that as a fee.
Yeah. And that penalty can actually be waived, get this, by the House or Senate ethics officials. So you got all these cronies up there that are in cahoots with one another to steal our tax money anyway. So you really think that they're going to watch over, they're going to be ethical and watching over themselves and being their own watchdogs? I doubt it. But there's a lot of watchdogs out there, and even some members of Congress that are shouting now and saying, look, no. We need stricter penalties or even a ban altogether on the trading of individual stocks. And that, I kind of agree with that. That's why I said I don't have a problem if they get into a mutual fund, because that's managed by somebody else on the outside who's handling that investment for that mutual fund for investors all over the country that aren't in Congress. So I don't have a problem with them being in a mutual fund. But I don't think that they should be allowed to invest in individual stocks, because I just think that the lure of being able to take insider information that you have because you get it as part of your job in Congress to be able to utilize that insider information to profit, that's too much of a conflict of interest for me, and I think it just should be wiped out. So I'm going to go through, I don't know if I'm going to tell everybody all the 56. Folks, you can Google this, all right? Not 56, 57. But we're going to start, number one on the list is Dianne Feinstein. And I'm going to hit them both, Democrat and Republican. I was shocked to see some of the people that I respect on both sides of the aisle actually hit this list. Feinstein was months late disclosing a 5-figure investment that her husband made into a private youth-focused polling company. Now, I know she could sit there and say, hey, it was my husband, but, you know, he falls under that rule. This rule applies to not only you as a member of Congress, but also your spouse. Tommy Tuberville, Republican from Alabama. All right, what he did, he was 4 months late in disclosing nearly 130 separate stock trades that occurred in a period from January to May. 5 months. That's a lot of trades. 130. When are you actually doing your job? If it sounds to me like your job is actually now a day trader. We'll talk about Senator Roger Marshall. He's a Republican from Kansas. He was 17 months late disclosing stock trades for one of his dependent children. I was very disappointed to see that Rand Paul was 16 months late disclosing that his wife had bought stock in a biopharmaceutical company that manufactures, get this, an antiviral COVID-19 treatment. Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona. I'm not going to talk about everything that they've done. Most of it was they just didn't disclose it in time. They took too long. But it's just the list of the people that have done this is what's surprising. Senator Cynthia Lummis, Republican from Wyoming. Tom Malinowski, Democrat from New Jersey. Pat Fallon, he's a Republican from Texas. You got Diana Harshbarger, a Republican from Tennessee. Susie Lee, Democrat right here in Nevada. Catherine Clark, Democrat from Massachusetts. Blake Moore, he's a Republican from Utah. Is it Mickey Sherrill? She's a Democrat from New Jersey. Mo Brooks, Republican out of Alabama. Jamie Raskin from Maryland, he's a Democrat. This one shocked me. Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas, seen him on Fox News all the time. He was months late disclosing several stock trades that he made in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Doesn't say anything about whether or not those trades had anything to do with, something coming out to fight COVID or anything like that. Representative Kathy Manning, she's a Democrat from North Carolina. Kevin Hearn, Republican from Oklahoma. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Why does her name always come up when there's something stupid or bad going on? Have you ever noticed that? I mean, every single time that there's something bad, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is in the middle of it. Your take on that, Victor?
Truth be told, I'm not familiar with her, so I don't have much of a take. But if the same names keep popping up, and y'all keep electing them, that's all I have to say.
I know. Do yourself a favor, Google her and look at all of the various scandals that she's been involved with, going back to the time that she was.
I mean, now that I think about it, I have heard the name Debbie Schultz before.
Yeah.
So I've heard it before. I just can't say that I am too familiar with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Michael Guest, Republican from Mississippi. Sean Patrick Maloney, he's a Democrat representative from New York. Brian Mast, he's a Republican from Florida. A little disappointing. And again, most of these guys were just late in disclosing that they had purchased a stock. But he purchased up to $100,000 in stock in an aerospace company. The president of the company had just testified before a congressional subcommittee on which Representative Mast sits. So, the guy's just testified, and you go invest in his company. All right. Representative Lori Trahan, Democrat from Massachusetts. I'm going to skip through here and just kind of highlight the more well-known politicians that everybody's going to be kind of like a little surprised. John Rutherford, he's a Republican from Florida. Pete Sessions from Texas. Yeah. Most everybody else, I scroll through this, nobody's really going to know who these people are. It's just it's a little disappointing, and I've always said, and I'm saying it even more nowadays. All of our politicians, every single one of them, is there for their own gain and the gain of their family and their friends. It is time, and I know it's going to take quite a long time to be able to accomplish this, and I don't know how to accomplish it. We need term limits. Now, I know we need a convention of states. What are we up to on that? Are we still in the high 20s, or are we in the 30s now as far as states that have signed on to have a convention of states?
I'm not sure. Let me actually look.
Yeah, I'd like to know some fresh numbers on that, because I'm trying to remember. I think we have to have 35 or 36 states, is it, to actually be able to do it?
Yeah, I think it takes 34 states.
34 states. Yeah, it's got to be a
two-thirds
convention. Yeah. So, and we need it. Yeah, that would be a 2/3 majority. Was it 17 to 17, 17? So 34 gets us there.
Yeah.
Right. So, without that, these people were never going to vote to give themselves term limits. They're making too much money. They're being reelected over and over and over again by a stupid voting public that doesn't pay attention to the issues. They basically just look at them You know, if you have the camera changed a lot of things, and we'll go back. Richard Nixon was so ticked off, and that was, and a lot of people have partially blamed the reason that Nixon lost the election in 1960 to John F. Kennedy. Kennedy was much younger, obviously, looked better on camera. Nixon looked sick, even though it was black and white. I believe it was black and white. Even though it was, they said he looked pale. It came across as looking pale. He was sweating. Just didn't have a good look in those debates against John F. Kennedy. And people voted for Kennedy because he was young, he was good looking, he had the pretty wife, the 2 little kids. Oh, aren't they adorable? And they voted based on looks. That's why nowadays you have politicians they have consultants on staff that are there to take a look at their image consultants. Since when does your image should be reflected on based on how you're voting and what you're voting on? But people will vote, well, I don't like the way he looks, so I'm going to vote for the other guy. It's crazy. And you end up with what we've got. You end up with a bunch of politicians that are in there for forever. And their constituents don't even realize, because they don't pay any attention. They don't realize what's going on in their backyards, and how bad things really are, to vote these people out. And it's really sad. The only other thing I can think of, if we can't do term limits, but then again, how are we going to get them to vote for this, is that if you're going to vote in an upcoming election, you need to take a quick little quiz on current events and make sure that you understand the issues, you know?
Yeah, but then it goes to who's going to make the quiz, who's going to grade the quiz.
I know.
It can go down a very deep rabbit hole.
Well, we talked about that rabbit hole that Congress will dig for just about anything, you know? Well, what's Proposition 8? I don't know. Guys proposed to somebody 8 times? No. Okay. I don't know. You know, anybody that's watching this show or even listening to this show, if you've got an idea, you know, let us know. I mean, you can reach me out on Facebook. You can reach me through, you know, all of the different channels. I think you could leave comments. We're going to open everything up. Eventually, we're going to have the email addresses. We're going to have everything. We're going to put everything up. We're going to have a telephone number for you to call in when we go live. It's crazy. So bring me up to date a little bit. I've been traveling for work. Anything, I'm just, like I said, I'm very, very impressed with what the Ukrainians have been able to do. I don't think that the Russians, and certainly Vladimir Putin, I don't think he believed that the Ukrainians would be pretty much even still standing after, what are we, 30 plus days now?
Yeah, I think it's just over a month.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm interested to see what's going to happen, because you got him backed into a corner. You know, is he I think there was certain estimates saying that you would need 500,000. Russia would need 500,000 troops just to take over Ukraine and to maintain it, but they only sent in like 100 and some odd thousand. So I don't even think they have the manpower, because they're gonna have to pull them from all their fronts right now, leave all the other fronts, you know, unattended, just to go to Ukraine and to like try to establish a puppet government. I think ultimately what's gonna happen is there's gonna be, I think they're setting up for another round of negotiations, ceasefire negotiations in Turkey. I think Zelensky's on his way to Istanbul, if I remember correctly. And probably what end up happening is they're gonna finally legitimize that Crimea is a part of Russia. Mm-hmm. Probably another city or two, and then they'll probably, you know, I promise, pinky promise, you know, cross my fingers behind my back that we won't join NATO. And I think that they're not gonna demilitarize Ukraine. That'll be very dumb on their behalf. But I think it's just they're just gonna inch in, you know. Make Crimea official, take another city or two, and then we promise not to join NATO. And I think ultimately that's where it'll be. But we'll see.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I've seen one U.S. commander that he's estimated that nearly 3/4, 75% of Russian forces are dedicated to Ukraine. I saw something about lost 10% of their fighting force. The Russians have. They're losing equipment left and right NATO is saying it's somewhere in the 200s as far as the number of tanks, where the Ukraine is claiming over 400 tanks that they've destroyed. They have, but also the fact of the matter is that there's not a lot of, they're running out, the Russian soldiers, the Russian fighters, they're running out of supplies, they're running out of food. That's why they're kind of just bogged down. They're really not doing anything. And their morale is like completely, morale is what, maybe 10%?
Have you heard of the Ukrainian mud season?
No.
So there's this thing in Ukraine where, and it's this time of season. We're coming up on the Ukrainian mud season, and the rains are so bad that literally you get like 2-3 feet thick mud.
Oh wow!
That even like the Ukrainian people be like, oh yeah, mud season's coming, so they know how to navigate it. But you think the Russians are gonna know how to navigate that?
No.
So their tanks are getting stuck, their Bradleys are getting stuck, their APUs are getting stuck, and they're basically down this long stretch road stuck in mud, and then here comes the resistance with the bazooka,
yeah,
or a javelin,
a
stinger,
yep.
and taking them out. So you have these natural things that are going to also be like, that's why you need so many people, because that's homeland. Like if you come here to Nevada in the middle of the summer, we used to it. You're not. So it's that's one of the things that's playing for the Ukrainians, that I hope they're able to hold them back. But at the same time, Ukraine isn't this utopian place and this great the Hunter Biden laptop is about Ukraine. The Burisma Energy Company from Ukraine. So there's definitely corruption and
there's a lot of corruption.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, and that was part of I don't want to rehash everything, because it's going to give anybody that wants to bring up all the old stuff about Donald Trump, because that's their deflection technique. Okay. They get busted again with their hand in the cookie jar, if you want to call it that. They get busted with Hunter Biden's laptop. And now the Washington Post has authenticated that the laptop was real. After they dismissed it as a fake scandal, they're now authenticating it. So when they do get caught, though, if you give them any ammunition and you come up with something else that was one of their previous talking points, they will use it. They'll use anything to deflect from the true story, which points the finger back at them. So I don't want to give them that. I do want to. We were talking this week, and it's amazing, because you come back to a poll, and I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. People were saying that it's like 70% of people in the country now are just plain either not, if not mean, they're just rude. Do you see that?
Yeah. I think a lot of that comes from this new narrative that's been going around, which is that you can equate speech to violence.
Yeah.
So now I say something is the same as me slapping you. And what that does is now in turns that if you say something that I don't like, I am taking that in as violence. Therefore, I can now do a violent act towards you. So I think like a lot of this, like, and then also, you got the social media where you're like hiding behind the keyboard, and half the things that you'll never say in person, you can say it on Twitter. You can say it without the fear of repercussion. Yep. And it's just like one of those things where like people, this power, like this power over, I can belittle you, or I am holier than you or better than you.
Well, we got a lot of keyboard warriors out there.
Keyboard warriors, sure. And a combination of all this is just turning it into just there's human interaction. Because if you're in person, you're not gonna act the same way as you do behind a keyboard. But
do you think, though, because I just thought of this, do you think that there's some people that, okay, they're a keyboard warrior, and because they're a keyboard warrior, they kind of get, we used to call it liquor muscles. Do you think they're getting keyboard muscles, so now when they go out in public, they forget that they're out in public, and they're reverting to what they would do and how they would behave behind that keyboard?
Well, it's so easy to live in America.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to worry about going to the grocery store or taking out your trash, or granted, there are some places in America, I was raised in the hoods of LA, so I understand, Chicago, New York, there's definitely dangerous places, but for the majority of people, it's very easy. You don't have to worry about boots on the ground from Canada or Mexico invading us. You don't have to worry about any of these things that most people have to worry about. And we have such a strong social security network, social structure to help people who, need help, in a sense. And obviously people take advantage of that they don't really have a way to, like, this fear and anxiety that builds up for just being alive. They don't have an outlet for it. Like, I don't have to be fearful that a bear is going to attack me or that I'm going to get shot. Like, I can just live my life.
Sure.
So then now all the complications, now you have energy and time to worry about little things. Like, did you use my correct pronouns, or are you doing this? Are you doing that? That there's just, you've never experienced about violence.
Too much. That way, basically what you're saying is too many Americans now have too much time on their hands to overthink stuff and
they ain't never been smacked in the mouth.
Speaking of smacks heard around the world, Will Smith at the Oscars, fake or real?
I think it's real, and I think it's just real because of over the past few years, Will Smith has been played, not played, but he's had issues. He's had issues, and he's really, like, starting to, like, come off as, like, a chump. Especially like with the whole Jada and the August thing and all this other stuff and the open relationship and all these podcasts that he's just coming out looking like a chump. And I think this was just like another one of those instances. Like, if you watch the video right before he goes on stage, he's laughing at the joke. Yeah. And you see Jada's face and she's not amused. And then 30 seconds later, all of a
sudden he's pissed.
And it's like one of those things where, like, yo, like, Will, like, you are people. Like, I was raised off of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, man. Like, one of my favorite movies growing up was Wild Wild West. Will Smith is that's he's a great guy. He's always so humble. He's a crazy intelligent, crazy good entertainer. He's insanely diverse, but
and his character, for the most part, I mean, the Fresh Prince, you wouldn't have seen him doing anything violent. He would have been completely against it, and that would have been the message from that show.
But it wasn't even that. It wasn't even like, it was a mildly insensitive joke.
Right. Exactly. And I even said it was, because I didn't really think it was funny. I thought it was a little insensitive. But then again, it's Hollywood, and she shaved her head on purpose to bring about awareness of her condition. So in a way, Chris Rock was bringing some awareness to her condition.
Yeah.
Was it in poor taste? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but Ricky Gervais last year went crazy at the Oscars.
I know. And nobody went up and slapped him. I did find this very interesting. I think this would be funny. It was a joke, so I thought it was really funny, but I think they should do it. Guess who should host the Oscars next year? One of two people.
Who?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because who's going to go up there and smack him, okay? Or Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Come on up here, Will Smith. Come up and smack me.
Will Smith is 6'1", 6'2".
See, that tall? I didn't know he was that tall.
He's a big dude. He's 180, 190. He's an average size. He's not like jacked or anything like that, but Chris Rock is like 5'7", 5'8", 150, 160. So, like, he's obviously way bigger, and that goes to the point, like, if The Rock or Jason Momoa or Vin Diesel or any one of those guys, anybody that was keep that same energy,
exactly,
exactly.
So it was, you I guess maybe in a way you kind of feel like you can intimidate a guy like Chris Rock. I haven't watched this. I don't pay any attention to these guys. I could care less about Hollywood. I don't go to their movies. The last movie I actually went to in the theater that I paid for was Ford versus Ferrari.
Great movie.
Great movie. I actually own it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But I don't care about these guys. So I saw the video. My first feeling was, and I agree with you, I think it was real. Because especially later, after he goes and sits back down, the language that came out of his mouth. And I know he's a great actor, but I don't think he was acting. And it could not have, you and I discussed this before the show, it could not have been staged without the Academy, or at least somebody that was helping put everything together, knowing that this was going to happen, knowing that this was staged. And I can't see the Academy signing off on something like this.
No.
So especially they're coming out now, and it's a good possibility Will Smith might lose his Oscar. They might take it away from him. So I don't know. So I think it's real.
I think it was. I definitely think it was real. I think Chris Rock, as great as he is, that his reaction was as genuine as I can think. Like just in utter shock of like, did this really just happen?
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Somebody told me that they've seen the video and they've watched like over and over and over again. And supposedly after the slap, as Chris Rock was, getting his composure back somewhat. If you look down, supposedly towards his right hand, he's balled up his fist now. He's ready to defend himself if Will Smith is going to continue this.
Yeah.
And I can't say for sure. I've heard. I have not, like I said, I have not analyzed the video because I don't care. But I would certainly say my hats off to Chris Rock if that is the case, because I'm not gonna stand up there. I get slapped like that. I don't even know that I would have had the composure to wait and see if he was done and then not do anything, or if I would have just, gone off. No pun intended. Well, actually, pun was intended. Especially that, I don't know. I guess we probably should be thankful that he didn't hit him with a closed fist.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to like hurt him, because if you see him he didn't like smack him like not with the palm, it was more with like the fingertips. So I don't think he wanted to hurt him. I think he wanted to send the message like, hey, I'm standing up for my girl. The
shock value,
but more like, I think it was one of those things where it was like, oh shit, let me do this so Jada thinks that I'm willing to stick up. I don't know what's going on in his mind. I don't know their relationship. I don't want to pretend to even think about, the relationship. I saw this funny meme that it was Jada, and it was a picture of Jada, and it said, damn, Will, Tupac would have shot him.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that too.
And it's like one of those things, Will Smith will never live up to the legend of Tupac, unfortunately. And part of that is because he died at such a young age, and he died before the peak of his potential, and or before his peak, and he was like just this crazy artist, and the way he died and everything. Legends live forever. That's why I don't think, like the legend of Kobe might always be better than the legend of LeBron. And that's because, Kobe passed away, unfortunately. So, you can never top that, but he's always going to be fighting the ghost of a dead man.
And the only thing that, we were talking about this also, the only thing that's going to save Will Smith and save his career is because of this incident. The only thing that's going to save him is because he is Will Smith. He is a box office draw. And I was even one of those that was thinking he might have just messed up his entire career. But then you kind of brought me back to reality on that. That's not possible. This is a guy that if he's in a movie, that first weekend, it's $278 million at the box office.
Easy. And
Hollywood, those producers, those production companies, those studios, they know that. And unfortunately, you're right, because you said it earlier today. Also, you said this is publicity. It's good because it's bad, and any publicity is good publicity. So, but I told you, and I still will stick to this. The guy that's actually, because Will Smith, his legacy, it's going to have a little bit of tarnish on it, and it's going to have an asterisk next to it possibly. The guy that's benefiting from this the most is the guy that got slapped, because his shows, he's coming back. He hasn't gone on tour and done a comedy show in 4 or 5 years, and he's coming back. He's got his first tour starting up again, I think this weekend, and he's sold out.
Yep. So
Will Smith did him a favor because everybody wants to go see Chris Rock. So. And I love Chris Rock. I think he's hysterical. I've loved him. I didn't even realize that he wasn't touring, and that goes to show you how much I really pay attention to these guys. And I love comedians. So anyway, you know what? I think that's all I've got for this week. Like I said, hats off to the Ukrainians. Keep it up. our administration, I mean, hopefully somebody here in the United States is going to grow up and be an adult and come over there and come up with a solution to help the Ukrainians. Not exactly sure what's going on. This is breaking news. Bruce Willis, he is stepping away from acting. His family has revealed that he has some sort of health issues, so he is no longer going to be acting, at least for right now. But that's all I got for this week's edition of the Brad Michaels Show. Victor, you got anything else to add?
Stay safe.
That's it. Stay safe. Thanks for listening and or watching. We'll see you next week right here for another edition of the Brad Michaels Show. I'm Brad Michaels. Thanks for watching.